What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Action Network podcast. It is week number 10. I'm your host, Chris Raybon. And today we're going to build our Sunday six-pack of Against the Spread bets with the help of my co-host, the Prime Minister of Degenerate Nation, Stuckey. Stuck, what's going on?
What's up, brother? Another shit week for me. Went 1-2 six-packs. I was a painful week. Had some bad picks overall. I played your six-pack picks too. I thought you were
Yeah, I
super
was.
unlucky. I mean,
Oh,
I
Seattle just
the
blew my
Seattle
whole.
game was, I mean, they had 3 red zone trips to end the game and they gave up
Oh,
-7 points.
mm.
Um, that was unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, I did a ton of defensive touchdowns. It's hard to cover with them. The credit to the Lions for getting. I mean, I couldn't even beat Outdoor Goff, who just didn't make a mistake. Love throws the pick six at the end of the first half, and the Packers were toast. I was surprised they didn't go to Willis at some point because Love he just didn't really look right. And then even the Cowboys, man. I mean, I know that they were down before Dak got hurt, but all 7 fourth downs went against them. Some of those
The
play
punt, the
calls
fake punt. Oh my, like
to
yeah.
go into Lamb on 4th and 1, and the fourth down swings in that game were infuriating. So, yeah, the only thing that I got right was old reliable my Ravens, and which that even somehow turned into a sweat. Vikings, of course,
Mm-hmm.
cover the full game. It can't cover the first half. They give up a defensive touchdown. I don't even think the Colts scored a touchdown in the game on offense. And then the total. That's about it. So yeah, it's been a rough 5 weeks for me, my roughest I've ever had, but everything will be all right. I mean, I've had like 2 other runs like this in 20 years, and it all ends up being okay. It's just been a historic run. I mean, I tend to play more underdogs than favorites. It's just been a historic run for favorites. I've only seen it like a couple other times, and talking a 5 week sample size, it's just there's going to be a ton of noise. But third time ever last week, favorites only had 1 straight up loss. They're 46-27-1 against the spread over the past 5 weeks, 63%. And then road favorites are just dominating this year. It's the best season through 9 weeks in NFL history. They are 16 games over 500. And only one other time have road favorites finished more than 3 games above 500. I mean, it's pretty insane. So I do think that there's some noise in there. We just talked about some of the home dogs and why they didn't get there. So there's going to be just variance in football games. I do think home field is becoming less and less important. I mean, rookie quarterbacks as favorites are 11-0 against the spread. That's even shocking too. So it's been a favorite dominated run, but I don't expect that to continue. Everything will be fine. It's time to get. We got to get hot though.
Yeah, man. I just completely whiffed on that. I mean, the Seattle game was infuriating just because they just puked that game away. They continued to get not even in the red zone, but down to the goal line but yeah, it happens. My worst call was probably the Browns just kind of overlooking Jameis's ability to screw up versus a pretty good defense. But we move on to week number 10, and we'll start it up with Thursday night football. We got the Bengals at the Ravens. Baltimore is favored by 6. The total is up to 53. So the total's been going up. It was a shootout in the first matchup. Stuck, you're always pretty locked in on the Ravens. What do you see taking place in this Thursday night matchup?
Yeah, I usually don't love Thursday night games. Although I've hit 2 straight and I've lost like every bet on Sunday. Maybe I should only bet Thursdays for now. Um, this is a spot where you generally look to want to fade the Ravens. I mean, Lamar is a home favorite above a field goal, like about 30% against the spread. Burrow is an underdog of a field goal or more, 19 times in his career, 16-3 against the spread. He doesn't get enough credit for how good he's been as an underdog. He's right in that same stratosphere as Mahomes and Lamar. And as an underdog of a field goal or more, he's actually the third most profitable quarterback in NFL history. And just like this spread was 3 in Cincy, and home field isn't. I mean, we just talked about how home field's going down. Divisional games, it's even less important. So, at 6.5, I strongly lead Cincy. I want to see the final injury reports. We record this at like 3:30 on Wednesday, so I haven't seen the final injury reports. I don't think T. Higgins is going to go. Which, would you agree there?
Yeah, T. Higgins looks very iffy. It's a short week, and it was something that acted up on him a couple of weeks ago. Remember, that was on Friday, so it was kind of like a late week thing there. Held him out all through that next week, and yeah, it doesn't look promising for him. And then who knows if the rookie is going to be active, because he's who knows if he's going to come to the meeting tomorrow or the walkthrough.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So I want to see if Higgins goes. That would be big. I mean, the way to beat this Ravens team is have a really good quarterback and have really good receivers on the outside. Higgins obviously elevates that room. Orlando Brown, not sure if he's going to go either at their starting left tackle, but I don't think it's as important against this Ravens team. I'm surprised they didn't address their defensive line, particularly their edge rush, during the trade, before the trade deadline. They're just not getting a ton of pressure. It's just, I mean, you even saw it in the Broncos game last week. I mean, Nick's many, many times had just all day to throw. He's just very limited as a passer and doesn't have the same caliber receivers that Burrow will have at his disposal. So I think this line is a touch high. Wish the Bengals were at full strength offensively, but I do think the short week does hurt the Ravens a bit because of their defense, the status of their defensive line right now. Like, they're dealing with a ton of injuries. They don't have a ton of depth. So I think that might hurt their defensive line even more on a short week. And look, the Ravens offense is a juggernaut right now. But the Bengals defense is healthier, and there's a lot of familiarity with these two teams. But I just think Burrow and that offense can keep up. So, if you're going to give me, a number that I show a bit of value in, I'll probably end up with a small play on the Bengals. If, those guys are ruled out, I would love to get even a juiced 7. I'm not sure we would ever get there. But, yeah, I'll probably be on the Bengals in some fashion. It's a huge game for them, desperation spot. They're playing much better of late. They have just upped their pass rates. That's how you want to attack this Ravens team. So, I like Cincy a bit. Should be a really good Thursday night game for once.
yeah, I think this Ravens team is going to be vulnerable to like spreads. Like, they'll win games, but they're going to be vulnerable to, like, they're not going to cover these spreads against teams with functional or better offenses. Like the Broncos, Bo Nix, he's just so volatile week to week in terms of depending on the defense. He's not there yet, but yeah, this Cincinnati team can definitely keep up, even if it comes down to potentially having to get in with a backdoor cover. And, they do have options without Higgins. I mean, they do have, even although Eric All going down hurts, but you do have a couple of pass catching tight ends that are almost like slot receivers, and Gesicki, Tanner Hudson. Brown has been good as a receiver. They don't want him pass blocking anyway. So they can keep up offensively. So yeah, I would definitely lean Bengals as well. I think this number, just because the Ravens have been putting up some huge numbers, and then you face a Bronco team that had a good defense, that's not going to matter against Lamar. But it's really the offense that couldn't keep up. Because you saw like the Bucs, where they get down like 30, and then they just kept going. You're gonna get points on this Raven defense one way or another.
Yep. Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a good spot in the schedule. Bengals with some in-season revenge, the huge swing game for their season. Since that, and the Ravens, really, they should have lost that game at Cincy. They were down 10 late. Bengals just, bad coaching decisions, missed field goal. I mean, since then, Ravens have played Commanders, Bucks, Browns, Broncos, have gone 3-1, but it's not the hardest strength of schedule that you'll ever see. So I think this is a good spot to kind of sell the Ravens after last week. But gonna wait on final injury reports. Would love to see if I can get like a juice 7, but I'll probably be on the Bengals small.
All right, let's go to our week 10 Sunday 6-pack. The score is you're up to 33-17 now. So you're chipping away. I just had a rough, only thing I hit was my total. We get 2 for our first 2, a point for our third, a point for our total, which we'll do in the next segment. So I got to get back on track. I am up first this week. And for my first pick of the week 10 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Indianapolis Colts plus 4.5. Still like it, 4, 3.5, whatever's out there. Anything more than a field goal against the Buffalo Bills here. And I think this Colts team is significantly better with Joe Flacco at quarterback. Now, you didn't see it as much, in that Minnesota game because they send a ton of blitzes. I think Stuckey even talked about it on the show last week. It's a team that's just going to send a ton of blitzes at you. That's really not what you want with Joe Flacco at the end of the day. But you get this Buffalo team coming into Indianapolis. You still have a great offensive line. Buffalo's, their defense is not the same kind of defense as Minnesota. It's a solid defense, but it's not one that's just going to throw a ton of blitzers in your face. They're dealing with some injuries defensively, as well. You got Jonathan Taylor back. Josh Downs is playing almost at an elite level these days. So I think this Colts offense can score points and keep up, especially at home, with Buffalo on the other side, who obviously Buffalo is going to get its points one way or another. But Buffalo also a little banged up on offense at receiver now because Coleman, who's been playing really well, it looks like he's going to miss time with the wrist. I mean, they have like 8 wrist injuries. I've never seen something like it, though. On a side note, I've never seen something like the wrist injuries for Buffalo. And then the crazy box score stats. Like, I think Miles Sanders had 2 rushes for -5 and 2 catches for -5 each. Like, I've never seen things like some weird stuff going on, but I digress. So this Buffalo offense, it's going to score points, but Holman banged up and Cooper, he's obviously not 100%. And we don't know how much he's going to play because he still hasn't been fully integrated into the offense and he just started missing time. So I don't think this Buffalo offense is going to just be like a passing juggernaut. They're going to go back to running the ball a little bit more. And that's going to keep games a little closer. And we've seen that with Buffalo this year more. Back in the past when they had Dorsey, a Buffalo win meant a blowout. This year, you're seeing Buffalo win a lot more squeakers. You saw it against the Jets, game they could have lost. You saw it against the Dolphins. There's just been numerous times this year. Cardinals, where the Buffalo Bills win small, even if they win. So I think that's a possibility as well, which is why I like it over a field goal. But I just think the Colts offense is being a little bit underrated. They were competitive in games. They're 7-2 against the spread, and they started Anthony Richardson for more than half the year. This guy couldn't complete a pass, and this team was staying in games. This team is covering spreads, outperforming expectations. Now you're at home, and you're facing this Buffalo team that's 7-2 straight up. When you have these kind of teams, these matchups, a road favorite with a winning percentage of 75% or more, they're just 121 and 158 against the spread over the past decade, just 43%. And if you filter out the last month of the season when you know a little bit more, and it's less likely that these teams are just a little bit inflated or overrated, you get to 97 and 138, just 41% against the spread over the last decade. So give me the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, I agree. This would have been one of mine. The Colts defense, we know what it is. It's predictable. It's basic. It's static. But they're now healthier. And your boy Womack, by the way, that's your guy. He's playing pretty well.
Always looks good out there, man.
But the the Colts defensive metrics, they are a bit depressed because of just the bevy of injuries that they dealt with earlier this season. They're now trending better health-wise. And despite those injuries, particularly up front, their run defense has been pretty good this year. They're top 10 in many advanced metrics across the board. You mentioned those injuries at wide receiver. I agree. I think Bills might go run heavier here. That's the strength of this Colts defense. And what do you want to do against Josh Allen? You don't want to play man. You want to play zone. And the particular coverages that the Colts use, Allen has struggled more against. So I think from a schematic perspective, this is a good thing for the Colts. It's also just a good time to sell the Bills as a road favorite. They've won, 4 or 5 straight. They're sitting at 7-2. They are 4 games up in their division in the loss column after a big divisional win. Kind of a sleepy-ish spot. Got the Chiefs on deck. And, I mean, this is desperation time for the Colts. Bills don't really blitz. That's kind of how you want to handicap Flacco and this Colts offense. Will be much better than it was with Richardson when they're not facing a heavy blitz team. Flacco and this offense in general just have not been able to handle opposing blitzes. Should get Raymond back at left tackle. Believe he was at practice today. By the way, just got word that Higgins is doubtful. Brown is questionable. In the Bengals-Ravens game. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty good matchup for the Colts, and this is probably close to the peak of the market on the Bills. Bills 7-2. How many teams with a winning record have they beat? Can you guess?
I'm gonna say 1, 0 or 1. Okay.
0. So yeah, I think injuries at wide receiver. Colts run defense is playing well, trending up. Good matchup with the Colts offense. Should be healthier along the offensive line. Ryan Kelly might be out for the year at center, but this Bortolini kid's played well.
Yeah,
and
very well.
And he's had a already play this year, which I think it is a good thing. So we'll see if the Colts can get their run game going a bit more. It has struggled when Richardson hasn't been out there, but I think Flacco can move the ball here on this offense. I think this is a good spot to take the home dog. Hopefully home dogs stop barking because I'm starting off my first pick of the Week 10 Sunday 6-pack and the second overall with a home dog. I'm going with the New Orleans Saints plus 3.5 at home against the Atlanta Falcons. This is scary. The Saints have been allergic to winning and covering of late, but I think this is probably the bottom. They've lost 7 straight after a 2-0 start. 3 of those were with Spencer Rattler. You could throw those out. They were 0-4 with Carr since. One of those losses at Kansas City. A pretty competitive game until late. The other 3 losses by 3, 2, and 1. So they've been fairly unlucky since that 2-0 start. The Falcons, by the way, who are number 3 in our luck rankings. Saints are dead last. This is a huge luck. This is your luck rankings matchup of the day. The Falcons have done nothing but win close games. And one of the most important aspects of this matchup, they've also benefited from who they're playing, injuries, teams having injuries. They could easily have three more losses. And they've won. They've dominated within their division. And when these 2 teams first played, look back at that game. They won on a last-second field goal. They had 2 defensive touchdowns in the game. The key thing for me here, I know the Saints have no receivers. I assume Olave's out. Do we have an update there? I mean, that's my assumption.
We don't have an update, but I'm pretty sure he's.
I mean, it's just no like 4th or 5th.
It's he's been. I've noticed that even before he started getting the concussions, he was just getting hit hardly. So yeah, I don't expect him. This could be a multi-week thing, honestly.
Yeah. So yeah, I assume that Olave's out. So that's problematic. Shaheed's on IR. Who are you throwing to? Like even Bub Means is on IR. it's
Taysom.
yeah, it's not ideal. It's like, but this Derek Carr is an above average, very good quarterback when he's not pressured. And the Saints are incapable, excuse me, the Falcons are incapable of generating pressure. Second worst in the NFL in pressure rate. Only the Panthers are worse. They can't get pressure. Carr can efficiently move the ball. And there's not going to be a lot of explosiveness, but the Falcons don't really give up explosive passing plays. You can run on the Falcons a bit. So I think, some Hill mixed in, a lot of Kamara. There's ways that I think the Saints can move the ball. But really what this comes down to is I just think this number, I can't get to above 3.5. I know that the secondary is banged up too, so your corner situation, the rest of the defense a bit healthier, but yeah, the corner situation is great. You traded Marshawn Lattimore, but this Saints defense, I think, can hold its own. It's just this is your prototypical buy low, sell high spot on top of the fact that you have a new head coach. You usually get a new head coach bump the first week with a new head coach. They seem to be rallying around the Riz, and how many times have we said on this podcast how much we hate Dennis Allen as a head coach? I think it can only be a net positive. Even last week against the Panthers, 4th and 1 late, 4th and inches late, punts it away. Thought that was a cowardly decision. Ended up costing him his job because then the Panthers drove down the field for the game-winning touchdown.
With Bryce Young.
Unfathomable. Bryce Young, the only quarterback to win last week, is an underdog. Who had that on the bingo card? Pretty amazing. So, yeah, I just think that this line has gone too far. Falcons, like last week, is a perfect illustration of their year. Like, they've been very fortunate in close games. And on 4th downs, they're 11 of 15. Of course, they didn't get 2 against the Chiefs for me. They're 11 for 15 on the year. Their opponents are only 7 of 16. So there could be some potential 4th down regression coming their way. So, yeah, I mean, Falcons are playing well, but I think that they're fairly overvalued in the market right now. At over a field goal, at home, with a new coach after 7 straight losses. I mean, I have this Saints team right now. I mean, this Saints team is basically the Cowboys. Like, I know that the Cowboys have CeeDee Lamb. And you probably don't have Olave, but you have a much better rushing attack. Falcons are laying 3 at home to the Cowboys last week. A defense that, didn't have any of its guys back. A defense that's very bad across the board. An offense that has been very bad. Falcons were laying 3 at home there. And Cowboys go 1 of 5 on 4th down. Falcons go 2 of 2. Dak gets hurt. They win by 6. Another 1 possession win. Like that, there's a lot of similarities between what those two teams look like, and you're going to give me 3.5 at home. I have to take it. And the other thing with the new coach is you could have some new wrinkles, which I think are important especially in a divisional game where there's so much familiarity, and you've already played each other earlier this year. So I think this is a rally spot for the Saints. Give me the 3.5 at home.
Yeah, I thought about this one. I don't know. The Saints have been really tough to predict. I mean, they just keep finding ways. I don't know much about this interim coach. Do you know much about him? Reezy, I guess he was a special teams coordinator. Any thoughts on him? Yeah. So it's just kind of an unknown for me. But over 3. This is kind of one of those spots. Historically, you expect to cover. Now in 2024, who knows? But I'd be on that side or nothing.
Yeah, and by the way, but I will. I've had. Yeah, it's like people will. I was arguing with someone on Twitter, and they were like, "What? You stop betting the dogs just so you can get closing line value." First of all, if you're beating the market in the NFL over the long run, that's all that really matters. No, over the long run. Now, I don't care about that in the short run. I want to win in the short run, but I don't care. I really don't care about what underdogs or favorites have done over a 5-week or even a 10-week stretch. It's just such a small, meaningless sample size where so much stuff can happen. But that doesn't mean that that also doesn't mean on the flip side that you just take every home dog going forward. Verd favorites, who's to say that they won't even have a better run? They might not, but I'm not getting scared off of what has worked for me forever. And this is a spot I have to play at 3.5.
All right. Speaking of dogs, let's go with a road underdog for my second pick and the third overall of the Week 10 6-pack. Going with the Pittsburgh Steelers +3 at the Washington Commanders, and haven't faded the Commanders much except that Hail Mary game in which I didn't even think Daniels was playing. But I think this is a good spot for the Steelers, and it's a little tougher for the Commanders because when you look at this matchup, first of all, Steelers bye came at a good time, get healthier. They had a lot of guys injured. Their defense is what's key for me. The Commanders, if you look up and down their schedule, they really haven't faced top-tier defenses at all. So the Bucs, Giants, Bengals, Cardinals, Browns, when they were kind of just not even fully healthy, probably. And then you face the Ravens, the Panthers, the Bears, which is probably the best defense you face, and they weren't healthy. And then the Giants again. The two games against the Giants, you only scored 27 and 21, which is on the low end for you. And that's because they have a functional pass rush. The Bears game, everyone would blame it on Daniels' injury, but the truth is the Bears have a good D, and Daniels looked fine. He just struggled a little bit. So now you have the best defense they've faced all year. You have the best pressure that they're going to face all year. You have Watt, Highsmith, Hayward, all these guys in the front are healthy. Maybe you might get Herbig back as well. So these are the kind of guys that I want chasing Jaden Daniels. Because the thing about Washington, everyone kind of says, oh, they're going to regress this and that. And it's like, that's kind of missing the point. Like, this Washington team is elite, even at offense, I would say. But there's a couple of things that I think can be exposed. Number one, they're leading the league in scoring percentage per drive, with just a number that's not sustainable. It's 60%. Like the league high, I think, ever over the past 2 decades or longer was the Patriots, the 07 Patriots with Tom Brady and Randy Moss. And I think they were like 49.8 or 50, something like that, like right around 50. So it's not sustainable, especially
They're
when
still
you consider,
perfect on 4th down.
Yeah. And here's the crazy part about it. They've done all that, and they're 26th in the red zone. They're not great in the red zone. But the reason for that is because when you look around this offense, Jaden Daniels elevates this entire offense, but the actual talent at the skill positions, and a lot of people would argue the line too, outside of Terry McLaurin, it's not great. And that's like Washington is getting by with Noah Brown catching Hail Marys. Noah Brown is their second receiver. The corpse of Zach Ertz. The running game is solid. Robinson's banged up. The line was a bunch of guys that, like, no one really expected their line to be good, but Jaden Daniels can move around. So now that's just not going to be there the same way against the Steelers defense on the, coming off a bye. And they get up for these road games under Tomlin when they're an underdog. I'll talk more about that in a second. But then on the other side, another thing that the Commanders really haven't faced is a team not only that's good on defense, but that can combine that with like a functional offense. And the Steelers have become that. Russell Wilson has played better than I expected. Their Pickens and Wilson combination has been working out. They traded for Mike Williams. I don't know what he's going to give him, but it's got to be more than Van Jefferson. And even he's playing better under Russ.
Does it?
I mean, maybe. I mean, Van Jefferson's not great. But
Mike Williams is running wind sprints out there. That's about it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like him and Aaron Rodgers have never got it on. Like, I don't know. Like that's a whole topic for another day. But anyway.
Well, are you concerned at all about how much Lattimore? This Washington defense is playing well. Now you have Lattimore for Pickens. I'm not
as concerned about that because, number one, I don't think Lattimore is the same player he was like in his prime. He's still a better corner than they had on the team, but that's what I'm kind of getting at. It's this offense has been running into good situations, right? Like now you play good defense, it's going to be tougher, but you have this defense it's still a weak defense, but you've played.
Lattimore's also hurt. He might not play. Like he's
right.
dealing with a hamstring injury.
And you played. Listen. You played the Giants, the Bears, the Panthers, the Browns. Like those are your last four. So like this defense is like, oh, it's trending up. It's playing better. They've really gotten it together. A lot of that is probably going to be a mirage at the end of the day because their defensive metrics are still bad. They're still a bottom 10-ish defense. What are they? 26. They're 26th in DVOA. And remember, DVOA takes schedule strength into account. So they're not good on defense. And the Steelers team with an extra time to prepare, getting healthy. They might have Frazier back. Their offensive line, even backups, have been playing very well, in place of some of the injured starters, but they needed time to get healthy. I think the bye comes at a great time for them too, because you got through those first couple of games with Russell Wilson. And now you get to kind of go back to the drawing board and tweak things a little more and figure some things out. Warren is as healthy as he's been all season. You have Patterson might be back. Everything is just health-wise trending up for the Steelers. And I just think this Washington team, we know they're going to regress and continue to regress. They were a 2-point conversion make by the Giants away from not covering that game. So, like, I'm not putting Washington on this Lions level of like, oh man, like this team is just covering. Like it's just not going to make sense. I'm not that scared because I do think you're going to see more aggression from Washington. But you also have the Tomlin intangible in the bag here with Mike Tomlin on the road as an underdog. He's going to tell his team like, yo, we're playing really well. And they're making us an underdog to this, rookie quarterback and this, team that's proven nothing against any type of competition. They're going to get up for this game. And Mike Tomlin, career dog, 59-31 against the spread, 66% with a 27% ROI, undefeated as a dog this year. It's just that they've been favorites a lot. So I haven't been playing them as much because, Pittsburgh's actually had an interesting schedule themselves. But Tomlin as a dog against an opponent with a better record, 30-11, 73% in his career. Just any stat you look at with Mike Tomlin, when the Steelers are getting points, you take it. And this is another thing I like about the matchup. This is a functional coaching staff. Like they're not going to have guys just doing dumb shit like the Chicago Bears did and still should have won that game. So give me the Pittsburgh Steelers +3 here. I expect Steelers to win the game, but try to get the threes because they're probably going to disappear. I've seen money come in on the Steelers, so we're recording this. There's threes out there, but I've also seen some books go to like a juiced or a 2.5. So I still like it because I just expect them to win, but try to get that.
I think I disagree. I do think
now you come around to the Commanders.
Well, I don't know. I'm still selling the Steelers. One of the difficult things that for me this NFL season is that I can just due to so many of the injuries and like key injuries is that you can kind of tear down so many teams' resumes. Like I can look at the Steelers. Like, is their defense that good? Like they played Atlanta in the opener and Cousins' first game back. Bo Nix second start. Chargers, Herbert and both their tackles get hurt. Lose to the Colts and Richardson, that was the best he's looked. They lose to the Cowboys. They played the Raiders, the Jets, and the Giants.
Yeah. Oh no, the schedule was easy. Like it's
like, and they've also had some turnover, and that's what the Steelers usually do, though. I will say they're usually good in one possession games too. My biggest problem though is like Washington's defense. They are trending up. They're getting a lot more pressure. Lattimore, I still think has a ton of juice left, and is he fully healthy? That's big for me because I do think he matches up well with Pickens. We'll see. He didn't practice today. He's considered day to day. I think that's pretty big for me because I do think the Washington corner group is going to be its eventual downfall. until they got Lattimore. So if he can stay healthy and give them something as a true number one, I think it elevates their defense. And Dan Quinn has them headed in the right direction. But yeah, I just think that I called the Commanders Indiana of college football. They just keep covering. The market can't catch up to them just because they haven't. It's hard for me too. I finally have, just because of the priors and like how good is Daniels? He just with his legs against this pressure, how valuable would that be? So it's hard for me to properly rate this Commanders team, but the Steelers are definitely a team I'm looking to sell. So yeah, I'm not fully on board with that one, but Tomlin is a dog. I can't hate you for it. But for my second pick and the third overall, for my second pick and the fourth overall of the Week 10 Sunday six-pack, I'm going with the Houston Texans plus 3.5 against the Detroit Lions. This is probably dumb. The Lions are 40-15 against the spread over their past 55 games. It's unbelievable at this point. I just can't get to this number. I mean, the Texans are plus 3.5 at home against the Lions. I can't get there. We know Stroud also, you want to back him in this Texans team as a dog. And while Goff is better indoors, so is this Texans team, so is Stroud. So I think that kind of washes itself out. I'm hoping that Nico Collins plays. It's up in the air. He's apparently ready to go. He passed all the tests. He didn't practice today. The Texans say it's when, not if, they'll activate him. But they didn't activate him today, so maybe that's a bad sign. He's obviously key. The Texans offense, especially without Diggs, is so much better with Collins. They're 6-13 straight up without him. But even if he doesn't play, I would still take this at over a field goal. Look, the Lions have been great, but they've also been quite fortunate. I mean, they lead the NFL in turnover margin, plus 1.5 per game. Last year, they were about even. When you look back at just the last couple of weeks, the Titans game, and they get 52 points on 200 yards with all those return yards. Last week, again, what were they? 4.5 yards per play, 200 yards, defensive touchdown. Packers just fail over and over again in the red zone. Love clearly wasn't at 100%. They got the Seahawks when they were so beat up, and it's not like the Seahawks have been great. So, I mean, just the Lions have been fortunate. I would have to assume this is close to the peak of their market value. Texans extended rest here, which I think is important. The team needed a break. They needed to figure some things out on offense, specifically on the offensive line. Green won't be in there, fortunately. And they should be healthier on defense. Lions, second straight road game at their big divisional road win. Laying over a field goal against the Texans and CJ Stroud. Can't get here. I have to take the Texans, hoping Collins is back. Curious to get your thoughts here.
Yeah, so I agree. I think Collins is big. I would almost prefer money line in this situation, even though it's right above a key number, just because it's like the Lions just cover machines. It's almost irrelevant. You might as well just get a bigger return if you're right. What I do like for the Texans is they can run the football, and the Lions tend to have a good run defense, but I think their run defense numbers, it's a little inflated. It's just their reputation is a little better than the reality. I also think this is a matchup of like two good defenses, and the Texans are at home, and the Lions, they did get some pressure relief with the trade for Zarius Smith, but the Texans have, I think, a better defense than the Lions at this point. And then CJ Stroud, like you have a quarterback that, because Goff is playing unreal right now. It's not just the scheme, it's not just the sport guys. Like Goff himself is, he's been ridiculously efficient of late. Yeah, and so there's only so many quarterbacks that you can trust to kind of match that in the league. Mahomes, Burrow, and I think Stroud is in there now. It's looked ugly at times, but his upside is there. So yeah, I definitely think the Texans are the right side in this one. I actually just prefer money line just because it's like betting against the lines against the spread and you just win your minus 110. If you, for the rare time you happen to be right, it's almost like you need that extra. So that's how I play it. But yeah, I think the Texans are the right side. I do want to, this Nico thing is interesting though, because I'm seeing conflicting reports. I'm seeing like, oh yeah, he's ready to go. But then I'm seeing reports that based on the fact that they didn't open his window on Wednesday, that's ominous. So have to see on that. But I think the line, probably goes back to 4 if Nico's out, and it probably closes at 3 if Nico's in. So, take for everyone out there that wants to bet this, just try and take that into consideration. All right. For my third and final pick of the Week 10 Sunday 6-pack, the 5th overall, I'm rolling with the San Francisco 49ers minus 5.5 at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is a play based on how the 49ers kind of have gone into the bye, and me have just seen this movie played out before.
Is this the Jacksonville game all over again?
Yeah, exactly. So I've seen this movie before. The Niners kind of whimper to the bye. Unfortunately for the 6-pack, we didn't hit that Cowboys-Niners game, but if you follow me in the app, I bet that game like to Sunday the lines came out. So if you got the 6.5, you actually got a back door. But they whimper to the bye, and their record is not where it should be. They've only 4-5, and this Bucs team is just being ultra competitive despite just getting decimated by injury, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And now you have a bye for the Niners, so they're getting healthy. Great coaching staff, so you're going to be able, they could actually take advantage of the bye and kind of scheme up some things offensively, especially. Now look at this Bucs offense. You got no Godwin, no Evans. McMillan, who was your third receiver, is banged up, was like a late addition to the injury report. So your receivers at best would be McMillan, Trey Palmer, who got benched essentially. Like he didn't play as much as on Monday night as people thought. Sterling, the ghost of Sterling Shepard, somebody named Raheem Jarrett, and somebody named Ryan Miller. Like those are your receivers. Now, Cade Otton, he's been the saving grace for this offense at tight end. What do the Niners do well on defense? Cover tight ends. Fred Warner. Like that's the position that is going to be the hardest to take advantage of in your passing game when you face the Niners, who are top 5 defense by DVOA this year. They've, a lot of times we end up talking about the Niners' defensive struggles as like a reason to fade them. Their defense playing pretty well. And I think this Bucs team has just been running hot. They've had a ton of easy matches against the AFC South, even after they got hurt. And then, of course, the Chiefs, the Chiefs can't get margin on them either and need like an overtime win. So everyone's kind of looking at this Bucs team like, they're just going to cover. No, people don't want to fade them. I think I actually see more bets tracked on the Bucs right now. More money on the Niners, but more bets on the Bucs, which surprises me. So I am fading this team. I think there's just a big regression coming, and the injuries are going to start to take a hold and affect them in terms of the point spread. And you look at the Bucs so far this year.
San Fran's getting healthier too.
Yeah, and so you look at San Fran this year. We can start with them. They've only won 4 times. They're 4-4. All of their wins by at least 6 points. But 3 of their wins are double-digit blowouts.
They also have a couple losses where they're up double digits late. Like they
right. And on the flip side, the Bucs, every one of their losses, because the Chiefs came in overtime, has been by at least 5, but all but one of them has been by at least 6. They lost 1 by 5, and that was on a late backdoor against the Falcons. So, this Bucs team, I think, if they I don't expect them to win this game. I expect the Niners are the better team. They're off a bye. They're well rested. That West traveling East, especially when the bye, it's been an overrated spot. Bucs on a short week, no less. With the Niners on a long rest. So just all the situational factors, I think the Niners not only should win this game, but I think the Niners can build margin in this game against the Bucs, and their Bucs defense, they've been getting lit up. I mean, you've given up 500 yards to Kirk Cousins. You've given up 40 points to the Ravens. You've given up 30 points in 4 of your last 5, 27 in the one you didn't give up 30. So this Bucs D is just getting lit up. And now you face the Niners off a bye, getting healthier with the most efficient quarterback by yards per attempt since he came into the league in Brock Purdy. And on top of that, you might get Christian McCaffrey back.
He's on track to play.
Yeah. So this is just a 49er eruption spot. They really need this one. It's not like a sleepy spot. And yeah, you mentioned it. Jacksonville last year, same situation. Jacksonville had been just overperforming expectations. I think they were coming in with 4 or 5 straight wins in a row. San Francisco had limped into their bye at, I think it was, let's see. They limped into their bye, 3 straight losses. They were 5-3, so they actually were better shape than they are this year. And I think the line was like, 5 or 6, but it just was kind of, people were taking Jacksonville 34-3, San Francisco. Even though they were traveling across the country to Jacksonville, and Jacksonville was coming off a bye at the same time. Whereas in this spot, Tampa Bay is coming off a short week. So I think it finally catches up to Tampa Bay on the spread, because of course the market inflates the Chiefs. And so Tampa still covers that game. And there's some luck involved with the overtime. But love the Niners as a favorite up to 6 in this spot.
Yeah, I like this as well. This is a brutal spot for Tampa Bay. Their short week off an OT game in which their defense was on the field for 85 plays. And I mean, they're banged up. Their secondary is a mess. You should have McCaffrey, Debo, Jennings all back, coming off a bye. This is usually when the 49ers offense hits their stride. I really like this. And teams coming off overtime on just 6 days of rest on Monday Night Football are 15-23 against the spread over the last decade. Even worse when you look at some of the snap count data for how much. I mean, the Bucs just, I cannot see them slowing down this 49ers offense. And then you take into account the injuries that they've had at receiver. I think that Cohen's done a good job scheming things up, but I don't think that it can really last. So yeah, I like the 49ers as well. Classic spot there. For my third pick in the 6th overall, the Week 10 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the New York Jets +1. Looks like there's a plus. We go +1. It's the most widely available. I don't really love anything else. 49ers I was considering. You took them, and the same with the Colts, which would have been on my list. But I will be on the Jets, and I have this spot circled. I think this is a good reset spot, and the fact that the Jets got that win over the Texans, keep their season alive, I think they'll come out focused here. But the schedule was so bad to start the year. I mean, you're talking Monday Night Football, Sunday, Thursday Night Football, Sunday in London, Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, Sunday, Thursday Night Football. I mean, they had a couple Thursday games in there, 5 night games, and a game in London without a bye. I mean, that's 5 night games in the first 9 weeks is exhausting enough. You throw in London, you throw in no bye, and all the injuries that they dealt with. This mini bye that they're on will be extremely valuable, and they should be a bit healthier. We'll see if they will get some guards back. They were playing the Texans with, I think, at 1.4 tackles on the offensive line due to some of those injuries. The secondary needed some time to heal up. They've just all been dealing with bumps and bruises. You also got Reddick back. So I think this defense can start to return to form from last year. And this Cardinals team, I'm also looking to fade. I mean, they have 3 wins where they were down double digits, all by under a field goal late. Their other 2 wins came in fantastic spots at home against the Rams, who were beat up off that overtime game, and then the Bears last week, rookie quarterback, bad road coach, off the Hail Mary game, missing 4 key defenders, missing a number of offensive line starters, and they just had nothing. I mean, they just looked like they never even showed up. Chaos in the locker room all week. So the Cardinals are 5-4. Their offense has been pretty good, but I'm not buying the Cardinals. I mean, this is, I think, close to the peak of the market on them. So I think this is a good spot. And look, the Cardinals just can't get pressure. They're incapable of generating pressure. Rodgers has been great when he's not been touched. I don't think the Cardinals can cover these Jets' weapons. I also think the Jets, especially if they get a bit healthier on the offensive line, can finally get their run game going to complement their passing attack. I'm not buying this Cardinals defense. That's the weakest link in this game. I don't think Rodgers will be confused by some of the schematic things that the Cardinals do that can confuse younger quarterbacks and less experienced ones. So I think this is a good opportunity to sell Arizona and buy the Jets off this mini bye, which they needed desperately and should be much healthier. I like the Jets here.
Yeah, this was actually between this and the 49ers for my third. So I'll probably be on the Jets as well. The one thing that I'm concerned about is the Cardinals' run game on offense, because that's really how they've been staying in these games. And they're not asking Kyler to drop back 40 times. Because if you look at like when Kyler's a high volume guy, the yards per attempt gets lower and lower. The inefficiency shows up more. You start missing throws downfield. But when they can run, and you can run on the Jets, so that worries me a little. But the fact that they were able to kind of weather that storm in the Houston game, because Houston just ran all over them with Mixon. But they still were able to kind of hold up there. And, it didn't come down to field goals, which maybe was why they held on. But I mean, they scored another touchdown in that game. And Houston, if you didn't see it, Malachi Corley drops a touchdown before Deshaun Jackson's it, and they get a touchback on that. So the Jets, they've been very unlucky. So yeah, I agree. I think the Jets have just been so unlucky with the loss of the Patriots. It was like 1 in 750 chance of losing that game. And you miss
Zerline has cost them like 3 games.
The Bills game with Zerline. And then you threw away a touchdown even in the game you pull out a win against a quality opponent. So I think if the Jets lose this game, it probably is because the Cardinals just ran all over them. And that does concern me. But yeah, outside of that, I'm going to be on the Jets almost certainly, because I think this is the right side. I just, I think the Cardinals outside of that run game, I just think that they're like, there's not much there to hang your hat on. It's like, okay, this is a team that's going to, hold off the Jets, who their weapons are finally getting in sync. Their run game hasn't been activated yet. They can hold up on the line if the guys that we think are going to be playing are playing. So it's really just, and their defense is underperformed. Like there could be some positive regression for the defense, which is like Sauce Gardner hasn't been great this year. A lot of guys on that defense haven't been as good. So
they've all been dealing with injuries. That's why also like I and if you think about it, the Bears, the key here, I do think, is the Jets. I really hope that their offensive line, like a bunch of them aren't practicing today. It's not a huge day, but I really do hope that they get a bit healthier on the offensive line. The good thing is the Cardinals don't get pressure, but I think that will help the run game. But I think the Jets, their defense is trending in the right direction health-wise. I have the Jets right now, close to a field goal better than the Bears. And the Bears were catching the same number in a worse spot with the worst health situation. I mean, who was out for the Bears last week? You had Brisker and Gordon were out again. Sweat was out. You had your entire starting left offensive line out and your backup left tackle out. And you had a rookie quarterback. I think the Jets should be favored here.
Yeah, I'm thinking this line is a little reflective of the Cardinals. They've won 3 in a row.
Cardinals have won their close games. Jets haven't.
That's and then even in the game last week, I'll talk about it more when I talk about the total. But they got some good luck in that win against.
End of the play half, Jesus.
Yeah, Amari DiMercato, baby.
The Bears never showed. The Bears didn't get off the bus for that game. That was an embarrassing performance.
Yeah. All right. So that's our Sunday 6-pack for week number 10. Let's see. What do we got quarterback wise? Stuckey, you have the Saints 3.5, the Texans plus 3.5, and the Jets plus 1. So that's Derek Carr, CJ Stroud, Aaron Rodgers. Pretty good. I have Colts 4.5, Steelers plus 3, and the Niners minus 5.5. So Flacco, Russell Wilson, and Purdy. That's also not bad. It's just mine are more like you take this 10 years ago. It's like the two extremes. It's like the most overperforming quarterback now, the ridiculous stats, and then guys that were good like at their best 10 years ago. So
I have that kind of some of that too. Rodgers and Carr, and then Stroud.
True. Yeah. So weird bunch of quarterbacks, but we'll see how it goes. That was our NFL Week 10 Sunday 6-pack. Now it's time for our coaches pep talk.